Well, hello everybody. This is Olivier with Shalom in Messiah Ministries. I am excited today to have my good friend John Holler on the show. I want to give you a couple of announcements before we start, and then we'll just get into it. We have so much to talk about. Uh, I want to invite you to visit our website at shalomandmessiah.com because I'm in the process of changing a few things in the way you're going to be receiving all my videos, my interviews, my daily devotionals. It's a lot of good changes that we're making to the ministry. So if you want to continue getting, especially my daily devotionals, go to shalomandmessiah.com and click on the connect button either on top of your phone or tablet or on the top right of your computer. And there'll be a choice for you to subscribe to the daily devotional. And this way you'll get them every morning around the same time directly into your email. You won't have to go look for them. Or like many people have told me, they don't even get them on YouTube. They don't get the notification, and it's very frustrating. So we're making that change so that you can get them every single day directly into your email box. And of course, you can select a lot of other things on our website. So that's for that. And let me get into today's program. We have a lot to talk about. First of all, John, welcome to the program.
Always good to be with you, Olivier.
John, I originally wanted to talk, and we are going to talk about I want to discuss an article I just posted about the new enemies of the Jews, and we'll unpack that a little bit in a few minutes. But here we are at another crossroads, I think, for Israel. In the last couple of days, John, so much has happened. Uh, so, like a couple of days ago the leader of Hamas was taken down by we don't know who, but everybody's assuming it's Israel. We don't know that for certain. It hasn't been announced. But what do you think happened, and why do you think? I think you told me off the air you thought it was very, very important. Explain to our audience why.
Well, so let's just. I sort of feel like I'm watching a version of Michael Corleone taking out the head of the crime families in The Godfather, which I think we both agree is one of our, if not our favorite movie
It
of all
really is
time.
not the movie to tell a bunch of Christians this is my absolute favorite movie because there's really a lot of things that are wrong in that movie.
There are. I mean, but the the use of the cinema art
Yes,
by Francis Ford Coppola in that movie is just
superb.
stunning. The visuals, the music, the all the stuff,
So,
and this
so, so
and
why do you say that about what happened in
well,
Iraq?
because I mean, it's sort of like that at the end of the movie, Michael, who didn't want to be the head of of the Corleone family, he was sort of reluctant, and he took it on, and then he became like the most ruthless one that they ever had. It's a very interesting morality tale. But what they did was they took out the heads of the crime families simultaneously all over the place.
Okay, so this is
So
what
you had Mo Green in Vegas and all this other stuff. And so now what you're seeing though is Israel, and I'm not equating Israel with a crime family. I want that to be clear. They're at war. They're being attacked by these people, and these people are incredibly evil.
yes.
So what they're doing is they're systematically taking out, decapitating the leadership of Hamas and Hezbollah in particular. And they're going after these guys everywhere. So you know, back in early July, Israel just confirmed that they took out Mohammed Deif, who was the number two or number three guy in Hamas, and he'd been there, he'd been around forever.
Right.
They also took out the number two guy in Hezbollah in Beirut. Um, and not sure exactly how the attack occurred. People think it was a air launched missile. Um, and that would kill some other people. And then there was they took out Ismail Hania in the political leader of Hamas. Uh, in
in all fairness,
Tehran, in Tehran.
he was taken out. From what I read, this was a very surgical, with surgical precision. It was not like, bombing, like carpet bombing a big area. It
Right.
was like, very, very precise.
They flew a missile in the window. That's one theory, but New York Times just released a report. Their investigation concludes that it was a bomb that had been placed in that room months ago, waiting for him to show up and use it.
Now, that's okay. We don't know that for sure. That's another
It
option.
took out him and his bodyguard. In fact, I'm watching Al-Manar TV. His funeral is today, as is the funeral of the number 2 guy in Hezbollah. Nasrallah just gave a speech at the funeral. Khamenei just gave a speech at the funeral of Hania and Tehran. And we need to understand the impact of these images. These are some of the most important, significant terrorists in the world, and they're like all off within 24 hours in different places. And it's clear who did this. I mean, there's no doubt that although there's some conspiracy theories out there that Khamenei took out Hania, but that's not true. Now, the most important thing about this is Seth Frantzman, my friend at the Jerusalem Post, one of the better war correspondent analysts, security analysts in Israel, just posted at Jerusalem Post an article that Hania, the political leader of Hamas, by the way, Reuters is releasing articles, the BBC and others are releasing articles that Hania was a moderate leader of Hamas.
Oh, I know. I know. If he was a moderate leader, then Hitler loved the Jews. Yes.
That's right. I mean, and it's gaslighting is what it is. They're gaslighting us. Well, what you see, no. We'll give you the truth, and it's a propaganda campaign. It's similar to what's going on with the Democratic candidate here, who I refer to as Kamala Harris.
But that's for another day.
I know. So anyway, but it's a constant propaganda campaign. So Seth said, look, it's very, very important what happened to Hania, because Hania was being groomed to be the leader of the Palestinian state in a 2-state solution.
So basically, once the 2-state solution comes to life, which probably won't, but excuse me, but you would be replacing Mahmoud Abbas, who's should be retiring because he's been in the 19th year of this 4-year term, as I always mention.
Something like that. I lost track in the teens as to how many years of the 4-year term he's serving.
Exactly. But and so he would be the new leader of the Palestinian Authority altogether, kind of like what Arafat used to be back in the days.
Yeah, he was being groomed for that. And by the way, he's not, I don't think he's as rich as Arafat was when Arafat had his passing to the other side.
Right.
But he's worth, pretty much confirmed estimates that he's worth about $4 billion. He lives in Qatar. It's clear. I used to joke that, in fact, I said this when I found out that he died, is that there's no way that he doesn't that beard and haircut that he has is a daily visit to the barber. So somewhere in Qatar, there's a barber that has a lot of openings every day now, on his schedule. I also saw a video that was done earlier, several months ago, when Hania's children and grandchildren were killed in a Israeli strike on a Hamas facility in Gaza. And he was very unemotional. That his comment was, well, they're martyrs, and that's good. I wanted them to die, something along the effect, I wanted them to die as martyrs.
So John, he's taken out of the picture. The leader in Lebanon, Hezbollah, taken out of the picture, and now Iran is saying that imminently, it could be any minute now, they're going to retaliate, and they probably will. But I got some on my feed last night. I was getting things that some reports from people that we can trust that said that the next attack is going to be a concerted attack from like maybe Iran, Iraq, Yemen, and a different countries against Israel, with something that I've talked about previously, and I want your opinion on that. If they were doing a concerted attack, it's not so much that they would want to inflict damage, but that they would want Israel to deplete its Iron Dome to a maximum number of depletion, so that when they do the next real attack, Israel is basically unable to defend itself. Is there validity to that?
Yeah, I think that's true now. It's also true that the U.S. just deployed, I've heard, deployed about 12 Navy ships to the Mediterranean Red Sea area. I don't know if that's true. I haven't been able to confirm that. That was reported on some open source intelligence things this morning. But we're going to see, at least what Iran is saying, is you're going to see an attack that's bigger than what happened on April 13th when they sent 350 missiles, drones, rockets into Israel. And I think eight kind of got through, a few landed and did some damage. And I think a couple people were injured by one of them. But by and large, Israel had way above a 99% success rate on knocking them down.
Miraculously.
And by the way, it wasn't just Israel. I mean, I think Jordan knocked a few down, and because they were overflying Jordanian territory, and the Saudis also participated, the U.S. participated. But I mean, this is the problem with Israel. And I've got an upcoming interview with somebody from Alma Research soon. This is a problem in Israel because the Iron Dome missiles cost $50,000 to $100,000 to shoot down a rocket or missile, but the rocket or missile itself, or the drone, might only cost $5,000 or $10,000. So there's a huge disparity in cost, and it's a drip and drab on the Israeli economy to keep these missiles supplied. And there's not an infinite supply of Iron Dome missiles. There's some hope. I don't think it's realistic, but I could be wrong, that this laser system called Iron Beam will be released and deployed soon in the field. But that has very limited range and efficacy, at least as my understanding of it is right now. So, but it can do for under $10 what it takes an Iron Dome missile to do, assuming they can get it to operational capacity.
Well, we might find out in the next few days if this is a viable option. They might be ready. They might surprise us with something else that, you know.
But part of and I want to say Hezbollah, Hamas, we should just say that this is a war with Iran. Right. Iran is funding all of these things. You know, the Iranians' motto would be, "We will fight to the last dead Lebanese." You know, that's they don't get involved that much themselves.
Right.
And remember, there was a missile strike. It was back April 1st when they took out a bunch of the IRGC leadership in a building next to the Iranian embassy in Damascus. So, I mean, Israel's incredible the way they do this. And I know there's people that get upset with it, but look, these people are evil people that are being taken out. Yes. And it's, you know, you take them out or you have thousands of dead Israelis if you don't. So I'm on board with it. So they took out the guy they took out in Beirut the other day was the guy who was the mastermind behind the Beirut bombing of the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut back in 1982, killed 200 or 300 U.S. Marines. So, I mean, these guys have been around for 40 some years. I mean, so this is leadership thing. So, and I also want to tell everybody, if you go to the Almanar, it's Almanar, ALMANAR.com.LB. It's Hezbollah's media website. If you look down the left of the page, you'll see the Dome of the Rock, which is in the picture.
Right. Behind you.
I don't know how to,
right.
I'm like the weatherman guy. I never know where to point. There's a picture of that. And if you click on that, they have a memorial page for every Hezbollah fighter that's been killed since October 7th. They now number about 500. And you need to understand what this war that Iran is fighting through Hezbollah with Hezbollah and Hamas is really about. Because on those memorial pages, every single one of them, Olivier says, on the road to Jerusalem, he was martyred on, then it gives the date. Every single one of them says that. This is about Israel. This is about Jerusalem. And I think we need to keep that in mind.
Well, we've known that, you and I, we've known that for years, that this is all about, taking control over Jerusalem and basically getting rid of all the Jews. I mean, this is the same song that's being sung by just about all the enemies of Israel, and it's done in a different way. I mean, those guys are doing it, violently. They're terrorists, they're killers, they're bloodthirsty, and it's a good thing that some of them were eliminated. And we have to keep Israel in prayer for the next few days. But longer than that. But something's going to happen. Maybe even a lot of people say before the weekend is over. So this is in any minute now. But I'm looking at these enemies of Israel, violent, bloodthirsty, and killers, monsters, like what happened on October 7th, like the people, like you said, it's all coming from Iran, basically, who's controlling everything. But there are other enemies of Israel, and that's, it's going to be same overarching theme, but I want to shift a little bit, because you've got the violent enemies, and then you've got those who continue to feed the lies about the Jews and are helping people making the wrong choices against about Israel and the Jewish people, and they're misleading people into thinking that the Jews are the problems, the Jews are the enemy, and that basically is fueling the rest of the enemies of Israel globally. And what I'm talking about people like, and that's what I wanted to discuss with you, different kind of enemies, but I personally think they're enemies, and they're very dangerous as well. The more verbal enemies than physical enemies, like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. Again, they're not going around killing Jews, but they are encouraging people to make to come to make their own opinion. I mean, to come to a conclusion about what the Jews are all about, and it's all negative. And so I wanted to unpack, I wrote this article on my blog at shalominmessiah.com. Careful, my friend, your anti-Semitism is showing. And I'm trying to expose in their own words what they said, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. So I want your opinion. Let's do Tucker Carlson first, and then we'll do Candace Owens. Tucker Carlson, there's two things he did that really concern me. And John, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I want to give Tucker Carlson the benefit of the doubt. I used to, watch him back in the days when I used to watch Fox. I'm not really a big fan of Fox anymore, but I never really had an opinion about good or bad. I just listened to his commentaries, and he seemed to be, his research was done well, and he had a lot of knowledge, and he was able to connect a lot of dots for us, the audience. And then, he got off on his own. And then a few months ago, he invited, as you remember, Munther Isaac, the guy who's basically, a Palestinian pastor who was in charge of the Bethlehem Bible College. I think he's the dean there, and he's also the the leader, the main organizer behind Christ at the Checkpoint, which I believe started in 2012. This year was the seventh biennial iteration of that conference. He's behind it, which is this is a pro-Palestinian, to an extent pro-Hamas, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-Zionist conference in the name of reconciliation, but it's not at all what it claims to be. So we invited Munther Isaac on his show, and he gave him the platform, and he listened to him. And I watched Tucker looking at Munther Isaac and deliver his message. And in both cases, Munther Isaac and John Rich, which I'll discuss in a minute, Carlson was like looking at his guests like a deer in the headlights. Like, I'm learning all this. This is all new. I mean, I can't believe it. And I don't know if this was he was putting on a show for the sake of the podcast, or if he was really surprised. You know, John, you and I would agree that Tucker Carlson has enough money in his budget to hire a very good research team. It did not look like he had done his research with Munther Isaac, but again, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. Everything was against Israel, in that just that guest should have never been on the show because he looked like he agreed with him. And then John Rich, this country singer who comes in to promote this new song Revelation, and basically uh, 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 militate against the view that you and I might have differences on the timing of the rapture, and that's okay. You and I have different views on the rapture, but you and I are friends. We're brothers in the Lord, and we're going to spend eternity in the presence of God because his son died for your sins, my sins, and the sins of the world, and that makes no difference. We can have different views on that. But John Rich came in, wanted to destroy that view, give a really bad rep to the Schofield Bible, and even mentioned that Darby, who was a promoter of the Schofield Bible, John Darby was connected with the Rothschild, and the way he said it was like the Jews controlling the world, the trope of the world domination that the Jews are after, going way back to the Protocol of the Elders of Zion. So we have two guests here on Tucker, and both of them are anti-Semitic, clearly, and Tucker has given him a platform. I really want to give Tucker Carlson the benefit of the doubt, but I'm running out of patience. What say you?
So look, I've met Mother Isaac. I've been to Christ at the Checkpoint. It was anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, anti-Jew screed for several days that I was there. Everybody was wearing the Palestinian keffiyeh. Uh, I think Tucker used the image that Munther Isaac had tweeted out around Christmas, where he had put the baby Jesus and the nativity in a pile of rubble, and saying that Jesus was a Palestinian refugee and he would have been in Gaza, and this is how he would have been treated. And it was the baby Jesus wrapped in the Palestinian keffiyeh. And I want everybody to make the connection, however, to the theology that's driving this. Munther Isaac is a Marxist liberation theologian. He's not in any sense a Christian, a traditional Christian or anything. He dresses up his Marxism in Christian veneer, and that image of Jesus in the manger in the Palestinian keffiyeh was exactly the image that came when Pope Francis went to Bethlehem in 2014 and did the mass in Manger Square in front of a mural of the baby Jesus in a Palestinian keffiyeh, Mary in a burqa, and Joseph wearing a Palestinian keffiyeh, the scarf. By the way, the scarf has a lot of symbols in it, and it really means from the river to the sea. It's kind of built into the graphics.
It's built into the X marks and the waves and
the fishing net and that type of thing, right? The lines. And so Francis is himself a Marxist liberation theologian from South America. So you need to understand the connection there. And then where they really unite up is on their hatred of Israel and Jews. And, Francis did his usual, the sort of the picture of him weeping at the separation barrier there between Jerusalem and Bethlehem, which was put up to prevent terror attacks, by the way.
And I've watched I want to interject very quickly here because I've watched the Christ at the Checkpoint, most of them. I haven't watched this year, but I remember the year when they they always invite one token Messianic Jew or Christian who's, just to give them more cred. And one year, Hank Hanegraaff was there. And
I did a takedown on that, by the way, in my blog. And Hanegraaff later converted to Eastern Orthodox.
But what I thought was very interesting, if you watch the the video is still on, of Hannah Graf's 30-minute presentation. And of course he's coming from a preterist point of view. But what I thought was very interesting is that you see him, and behind him there's some kind of a decor, metal things where you could hang things to make the background look more interesting, and on it was, of course, hanging on it was a folded keffiyeh. And
Yep.
I thought immediately when I saw it, because they were talking speaker after speaker after speaker, speaking of reconciliation between the Jews and the Arabs and the Christian, and then we have to love one another like Jesus did. And I'm thinking it would have been so easy to send that message by simply hanging a keffiyeh and a prayer shawl together. Not saying that it would resolve all the problems of the Middle East, but if you really mean what you're saying, hang a keffiyeh and a prayer shawl, the Jewish prayer shawl, together. Everything they advertised was in English and Arabic, never had any Hebrew lettering. So their reconciliation really is comply with what we say. That's reconciliation. It's a one-way reconciliation. You do what we say, and then we'll be your friend, which is, it's no reconciliation at all. It's going one way. So anyway, I wanted to insert that.
Yeah. And I think that, by the way, I think the conference goes back to as early as 2010. But and
Okay.
they'll have guys like Gary Burge is a
Yeah.
regular at Christ at the Checkpoint. And I met all these guys. In fact, the one I was at, I was sitting down at lunch, and there was a chair open next to me, and lo and behold, here comes Steven Sizer himself, and
I was thinking of mentioning his name too. Okay, so he sat next to you.
at lunch. Yeah, and I was going to try to engage him, but he wanted to talk more about himself than anything else, so I just sort of let him drone on, so I could eat my chicken dinner. But anyway, so this is a big problem. I mean, this is a consistent thing. And back to Tucker, Tucker never challenged him on anything. He was totally unprepared. Or was he? As you said, Tucker makes millions. He can afford a research staff. He could have picked up the phone and called you or I or Brian Schrager or anybody who's written about Christ at the Checkpoint. And he didn't do that. And look, I've heard from Fox insiders that said that the one thing, if you notice, Tucker never really talked about Israel in a positive fashion in all the years he had his program.
And I would have respected him had he invited Munther Isaac and maybe somebody from the other point of view from Israel, and have them debate and just sit back and say, guys, I have questions I need to understand. Give me both your opinion. But that never was the case.
No, and so I think that and so Tucker, I mean, there's some very concerning things about this, because I watched the show. I did a lot of stuff I liked because I thought he did good research. I think he brought out a lot of points. He interviewed people, but it never involved Israel. And to the extent it involved Middle East at all, it was what Tucker would call an America first view, but it's really an America only view. Like, the Middle East just doesn't exist, and why do we have to worry about it? Because it's never going to affect us here. Except now that a lot of people in the Middle East have ended up in Europe and here, and we don't know exactly what is going to happen. I was in England a number of years ago, and I can kind of remember we were staying near Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, the great free speech place. And we were at a Marriott hotel, and we had 50 TV stations on the cable in the hotel. 10 of them were Arabic in central London. Now, so how does that happen? And by the way, you walk around the streets near a hotel. It wasn't English people. I saw more burqas in London than I did when I was in Israel, in the Palestinian areas of Judea and Samaria. So it's a problem. So Tucker never challenged him. And then the John Rich interview, and
Yeah.
I understand everybody's got their view on rapture timing and everything. And Rich
that's okay. We can have
yeah,
different views.
and Rich did come out against the pre-trib rapture and everything. But I think everybody kind of focused on that and missed the bigger point. What I think was the bigger point of that interview was when and Tucker sort of has a strange he claims to be a Christian, but I've never read the Bible till recently, and I'm going to give him credit for that. But so so because when Rich was talking about the Revelation song, and I may have got this wrong when I talked about it, but it was like kind of Tucker said, "Oh, so you downloaded it? You got it downloaded from God or something like that?" It was just not.
Some people called it. They said that he channeled
Channeled. I think is the term Tucker used.
The words of the song, and then in the interview, basically from your perspective and my perspective, from a Christian standpoint, we could say that maybe what he meant, which is really not the important part of the interview, but what he meant is that the Lord gave him the inspiration for the song. He could have never written it on his own. And I'm an artist. I've painted a lot of paintings, and I the Lord will give me the inspiration and the talent to do something, and I'm thankful for that. So is it possible that somebody gets the inspiration for a song from the Holy Spirit? Absolutely. Yeah. Is that what happened on the song Revelation? Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not here to judge, but that's really not, like you said, that's not the main issue with the interview.
Well, I think that when Tucker used the term channeling, I don't think it's difficult when you're in an interview like that. It's like, oh, wait a minute, Tucker, there's a whole bunch, you're not going to do that necessarily. So it kind of gets out there maybe in not the best way. But I think the most important part of the interview, though, was when Rich, and this was incredibly wrong on Rich's part, to say that Darby and Schofield, when they were propagating their views, were funded by the Rothschilds. I do not think that there is any historical evidence to support that. And Tucker immediately leapt on that and said, yeah, and that's had huge foreign policy implications for us here in the USA, meaning we're actually trying to help the Jews over there, and we're getting involved in foreign wars that have nothing to do with us, and it's the Jews.
And that's probably that is the most people did not pick up on that, because most people, like you just mentioned, would decide to take side and saying like, well, I'm a premill rapture position, so I don't agree with that. Or, oh, finally somebody who's exposing the false theory of pre-trib premill, and people, put on both sides of the fence. But the issue, when John Rich said, and by the way, Darby, he did not mention Schofield. It's just Darby. He said, by the way, Darby, he was connected with. And then he pauses for drama and he goes, the Rothschilds. Now, so that John, and for the benefit of our audience, I just did a series of videos and articles on some of those theories, conspiracy theories, and on the Rothschilds. And one of the books I have on it's a 2-volume set on my shelf right here, on the Rothschild family, which is goes for quite a few years. In 1837, I have a one mention in 2-volume of a John Darby, which I believe is the same, who ended up being a person helping 2 of the sons of Rothschild, of whichever sons they were, it's not important, to go on a trip in Europe and be their guide. Okay, so that's about as far as a John Darby, which is probably the same, would have been involved with a Rothschild as a guide to show them parts of Europe at the time when they were traveling in 1837, which would be the year also that Darby had his accident, and when he ended up being bedridden after that and reading the Bible and changing his views and spending time. So just a little side note here, there is a mention of a Darby in the Rothschild biography, but it's very, very small, and it has nothing to do with funding or promoting or directing any, and there's no aspect whatsoever, no financial connection whatsoever. But I don't want to be accused by people, people love to come and make comments on our videos saying like, well, Melnick doesn't do his research because there is So yeah, there is one, but it's completely disconnected from any financial aspect. Just want to add that.
Right. And I think that's true, but it gets thrown out there. And I think, excuse me, our friend, who I think you got to interview recently, Carolyn Glick,
Yes.
she made the comment a few months back, I don't know if Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens are anti-Semites, but they sure seem to interview a lot of them. And it's a very clever technique that they do. It's like, well, I'm just interviewing this anti-Semite. I don't agree with their views, but you never really challenge them as a journalist and an interviewer or anything like that. So just spare me the self-righteous, cover up that you're trying to do, because it's clear where you're coming from,
Well,
because it happens all the time.
I would say for Tucker Carlson, okay, he's using that technique. He's interviewing anti-Semitic people. Yes, I would say, okay, there could be an argument for maybe he's not fully prepared. I mean, I think I'm giving him more credit than he deserves. But then let's shift. Okay, let's shift for a few minutes to Candace Owens. When I discovered Candace
Now,
Owens,
this is much worse, by the way.
yeah, exactly. That's a different story. When I discovered Candace Owens a few years back, I was very impressed. Young, African American, conservative woman. I'm going like, wow, this woman, this young woman is smart. She seems to be educated. She seems to know what she's talking about, and she is bold. She's making statements that are going to make a difference. I was really impressed. And then the first time that I started to go like, oh, wait a minute, this is not good, is the incident, and I don't even know how long it was, a year ago with Kanye West. How long ago was that?
It's probably been 2 years ago.
Okay,
That
so
was the first one. And I think she's retweeted stuff with Nick Fuentes, who is just an absolute neo-Nazi.
well,
Um,
yeah, and my problem with that's when I started raising my first red flag, was when she said, and I have that video somewhere in my files, when she said like, and she's friends with Kanye West, and she said, come on, you don't believe that because what he said that tomorrow is going to go, what does he say, after the Jews? I forgot the expression. When he said he's, like I forgot the expression that he used to say he was going to go after the Jews.
yeah, I know the comment that you're
Right.
referring to, but I can't
Anyway, so
remember
when
the
he said he
exact
was going
wording
to,
either.
yeah, DEFCON 3 or something like that.
That's exactly what he said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go
Tomorrow I'm going,
DEFCON 3 on the
yeah,
Jews.
tomorrow I'm going DEFCON 3 on the Jews, going like, I'm going to go kill all the Jews. And then she said, come on, you don't believe that when he said that, he was seeking to do it, to start another Holocaust. By the way, before I go into the rest of my comment here, those were the days 2 years ago when Candace Owens believed there had been a Holocaust, because she says another Holocaust. She doesn't even believe that anymore. So as bad as that comment was 2 years ago, she said another Holocaust, building on the fact that there was one in the 40s, which of course we know took place. But she said, you don't believe he's going to be pushing for another Holocaust just by saying that. And I immediately in my head made the connection between Kanye West and Candace Owens and Martin Luther and Adolf Hitler. When Martin Luther wrote Of the Jews and Their Lies in 1543, something like that, when he wrote that 2 years before his death, he was not looking at a Holocaust to take place against the Jews. But when Hitler looked back, oh boy, let's finish what Martin Luther started.
Now he had the theological foundation to
Right, and
do what he wanted to do.
and I have the quote in Mein Kampf when Hitler quoted, Luther as a great man, that he was, really, he was really respected and appreciated what Martin Luther was all about. So Hitler wanted to finish what Martin Luther thought theologically, at least. And now we have a Kanye West, and then she says, well, he's not starting anything. There's going to be somebody looking back and say, you know what, I agree with Kanye West. Let's go DEFCON 3 on all the Jews. And here we are, where actually, since October 7th, it seems like a lot of people are going or are interested in going DEFCON 3 on the Jews. So Tucker Carlson, okay, I want to give him some credit. Maybe he's not educated on the topic. Maybe he got the wrong guess. Maybe he got caught off guard. Whatever it is, I still think, like you said, he's inviting too many anti-Semitic guests, and his anti-Semitism is starting to show. But Candace Owens, what she just did, what she did recently with, I think you and I watched that video. I think it was yesterday, and it came out.
On the Star of David, yes.
The Star of David. Well,
right behind you.
The Star, yeah. This is, by the way, I'm as you can see, I'm probably a demon-possessed, demon-worshiping Jew. Moloch worshiping, because I have the Star of David. This is ridiculous. The Star of David is known as the Magen David, the shield of David, and it's connected to David, possibly to Solomon. There is some there's a lot of unknown about the Star of David. We don't really know where it originated from with certainty, but it was adopted as a Jewish symbol. Nobody, I tell you right now, I speak for all Jews, we don't worship the Star of David. It's a symbol of identity. Just like the menorah is a symbol of Jewishness, just like the cross around the neck of a Christian is a symbol of Christianity. This is a symbol that represents Judaism, nothing less, nothing more. Now, it was officially adopted in 1897 that's true. She mentioned that in her video. So again, mixing truth and lies. It was adopted officially by by Herzl and the first
Zionist
Congress in Basel, Switzerland, in 1897, and then it was put on the Jewish flag, the Israeli flag, and so what's interesting is that even on the Palestinian flag prior to 1948, you have a Star of David, but that's for another time. So
you also have headlines, by the way, in the New York Times back in that time frame in the 30s saying Arabs to vote to boycott Palestinian goods.
Right.
The Palestinians were Jews.
Of course, but yeah, that's what they meant back then. But that's something I've already covered. You and I have already covered.
Yeah. So back to Candace. Can I just make a couple comments? So yeah. I'm really concerned where all this is going, because I've told you off air. I watch media from what you would call the MAGA right, the pro-Trump right, and when a Jewish person is on, the comments are filled with Jew hatred.
Yeah,
unlike anything I've ever. It's like a sewer. I mean, it's unbelievable. And so there seems to be a tolerance for that on the right under the guise of America first. We don't want our precious sons and daughters to be involved in foreign wars. And there's war in the Middle East right now. There's a war between Israel and Iran. I mean, let's be honest about it.
Yes.
But it's affecting a lot of other things. It's affecting shipping in the Red Sea. It's all this thing. But my concern is when I turn on the Republican National Convention, I look and I see Tucker Carlson front and center doing a big speech. And nobody ever really says anything about this problem with Tucker, which is very concerning to those of us who are pro-Israel, Zionist, whatever you want to call it, meaning that we think Israel has a right to exist, and that it's also part of God's prophetic plan. And then with Candace Owens, I see now, I don't know if it ever took place. There was a big fundraiser scheduled with her at Donald Trump Jr. I don't know if that was canceled or not. I know, by the way, her husband is in business or was in business, Candace Owens' husband, in business with Kanye West. So there's kind of an economic thing to that relationship there. But then I'm also concerned when I see Candace Owens, being invited to speak at Turning Point USA meetings. Now, I don't know if those have started to be withdrawn yet or not, but I'm telling you that it's like a constant drip with her now about this anti-Semitic views. She's pushed this Khazar theory. I know you and I have talked about that.
In that list, I'll try to link the video in the description on in this video on X when she's like basically connecting the Jews with the false god Molech, and then saying the Star of David is a symbol of it's a demonic occult symbol.
Right.
And
By the way, her source for all of that is
oh yeah,
Wikipedia.
the Wikipedia. And
Like, right.
And she, by the way, she quotes scripture. There's so many bad things in that little video, 7-minute video. She quotes scripture, but she never gives you the reference. I found it. I believe it's in the book of Amos, and it's Amos warning against Israel that they never really listened to God properly during the wilderness wanderings from Egypt to the promised land, and that because they are going after other gods, which are mentioned in that passage, and they will be taken into captivity, and that's a reference to the Assyrian invasion that comes later. But so that's in the book of Amos. So in case you're wondering where she got that, and in that passage, it talks about the star of your gods with a little g, and it has nothing to do with the Star of David. It has to do with, I think, with planets, really. And and she takes that out of context and she says this is a Star of David. They're going after false god, and then she's making all those connections, and she and like you said, she gets her sources Wikipedia, and boy, I feel really good about. I mean, about knowing that she sourced it in Wikipedia because we know it's the truth, right? If Wikipedia says
I mean,
it,
that's the ultimate source of truth, I guess.
I can't believe do it. I mean, some people do it; they don't even mention it. But to start a video by saying Wikipedia said it, so it must be. I don't know the words she used, but it must be true because they wouldn't do it. I mean, has she lost her mind?
Well, and then she ends a lot of her things now, her tweets with pound Christ is king. Like that. So I can say all the garbage that I want that may or may not be true, likely not true. But as long as I say Christ is king at the end, I've covered it over, all the untruth that I've said. And so that phrase, you'll see it throughout right-wing tweets and that type of thing when people are very and really what it's become is an epithet for well, we're smarter than the Jews. And so
She
you know
recently converted to Catholicism, right?
she did. Yes, that's right. She published things on her uh Twitter feed and elsewhere about that. So she's really kind of a lost wandering soul. And look, I think that in terms of some of these people on what I would call right-wing media, another show that I would point out to people because it's fairly popular in my community is a show called Redacted
Yeah.
with Clayton and Natalie Morris, who used to be with Fox News. And there's a lot of things that they say that are right, correct, and there's things that help support the views that I have. So we like that. But then they're very pro-Russian to the point where sometimes I'm wondering, like, how much are they getting paid? And if they're not getting paid, then they should be, because they're doing a very effective job of pushing what I think is outright Russia propaganda.
Wow.
And by the way, Trevor Loudon over at RAIR Foundation did an interview recently where he talked about this uh, problem with Russia propaganda propagating through right-wing media. And I'm pretty sure he had Redacted in mind when he said that. And then they will bring on guests like a guy named Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter is one of the most anti-Semitic, Jew-hating people on the planet. And again, it's one of these things, well, we're just interviewing Scott Ritter. But then if you listen to, I mean, just go to Redacted YouTube channel and do a search for Gaza or Israel, and you'll find all their videos. And I'm telling you, tell me that what they're saying is any different from what, say, the worst right wing or the worst anti-Israel Twitter people are saying about Israel and Jews and that type of thing. You can't distinguish between the two, but we like redacted because some of the things they say we agree with. But listen, let's be honest about what they're really saying about Israel and Jews and whether it's true. And it's just a constant anti-Zionist screed.
Yeah, it's
So, I mean, there's so many. I'll just make one more reference, Olivier, on anti-Zionism. Is anti-Zionism anti-Israel or anti-Jew? There was a debate recently. It's called the Munk debates, MUNK. You have to contribute to get access to the full debate, but you can find snippets of it. And the pro-Israel part of that debate was handled by Douglas Murray and a Jewish lawyer in London who works for UK Lawyers for Israel Charitable Trust. I think she's director of that or legal counsel for that. Her name is Natasha Hausdorff. And you should go find that debate, find her 3 or 4 minutes summation. It's phenomenal. And there's also some videos that she's done taking down the International Court of Justice thing. She gives lawyers a good name. That's my opinion. She's phenomenal.
and that's a difficult job.
Right. I mean, so she does an excellent job and she's so spot on. And so what we see is this anti-Semitism manifesting itself through our government. And then you see it in the International Court of Justice. So, Tucker and Candace are sort of small symptoms of a very, very large problem. And when you look at the International Court of Justice ruling recently that Israel is illegally occupying Judea and Samaria, it's totally wrong. It's not based on a good interpretation of international law, and it's very consistent with Resolution 2334 that the Obama administration did not veto in the Security Council back in 2016. So, I mean, these things are all very connected, and I think people need to really dig in and do the research. Israel's not illegal. It's not illegally occupying. That's a big, false, fake, made up lie. But too many people buy into it. So now I've spoken too much. So
how do we what do we do with a lot of people still rely on Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. I think Candace Owens is pretty much, I mean, I want to say she's done. I mean, she's trying to salvage whatever reputation she has. But I think if she goes any more in the direction she's going right now, she's not going to have much of a following, except for, the anti-Semites of the world. So, I'm done with her.
So what do we do? I mean, that's a great question because, and I don't remember if you and I talked about this or not. And so this issue of Israel is kind of I think it's a difficult thing to navigate, particularly in the time in which we live and with what is going on in the world and what we think is significant in a prophetic timeline. And I think there's two issues here is I think that there are some Christians who are pro-Israel, but go too far to almost to the point of worshiping Israel in a sense. I hate the usage of that term. I'm trying to think of a better way to say that. I
understand what you mean by that, but we have to be careful. Yeah, they're blinded by their love for Israel, and they're maybe too forgiving in some areas because in their own eyes it looks like Israel cannot make any mistake.
Right. Yeah, and we have to talk about that. On the other hand, is what Candace Owens is doing and Tucker Carlson, let's say, is dabbling in, which is outright Jew hatred, anti-Israel, and that type of thing. I've said this before. The issue of Israel will be the most divisive issue in the evangelical church until the Lord returns.
It is. It is right now. I mean,
it is, and it's not going to change.
No, and I was going to bring it up, and you just brought it up. I'm glad you did. I was going to bring it up. I was going to say, I think you and I discussed it before. I think we talked about that when I visited your church a few months ago. Uh, and that this is I think that's the final dividing factor. And it's going to be the support or lack of support for Israel. And the perfect example of this division, I think, is found in the parable of the sheep and the goats in Matthew 25.
That's right. Can
Uh,
I can I say a little encouraging thing that I've seen in the last 24 hours?
well, we're probably going to finish the show with this. If it's
Okay.
encouraging,
Yeah, I
I'm
know
going to have
because
you do
we're
that and then I'll close.
so James White, who's a Calvinist, I don't know if I should use uber Calvinist. He's a very strong Calvinist, amillennial, that type of thing. He came out, he posted, it's on his, you can find it on Twitter, calling out his fellow reformed people, saying, you need to stop this outright Jew hatred. And if it's happening in your church, go to the elders of the church. And if the elders of the church will not put a stop to it, leave that church. This is a shocking statement, in my view. I mean, and Doug Wilson, who's a pastor in Idaho, he has probably the best YouTube channel title called Blog and Mablog. I just think it's so, and he's very clever, but he's very conservative, nationalist. We're going to bring in this great. He's sort of I don't know if I would call him a dominionist, but he thinks we're going to turn the world around before Jesus returns.
That's kingdom now.
Yeah, so I don't agree with him on that, but he's very clever, and he's come out against these reform people. Apparently, they went to a conference, and these reform people are just spewing this Jew hatred. And James White said this thing is like, you guys need to repent, or I'm going to name you.
I know, I know. I saw that's the video you sent me, right?
I did, yeah.
Yes, I will put the link to that video in the description as well because I think people need to see this. It is encouraging indeed that reform a reform theologian of sorts would go as far as saying like, leave the Jews alone, enough already.
Yeah, look, Olivier, with what's going on in the Middle East right now, we're on the verge of what could be a very major war. It could devolve into a World War III or something, and something that really fulfills Bible prophecy. We don't know yet. We'll have to see and wait.
Right.
But I think that what's really at stake here is it is an existential threat to the nation of Israel
It is.
and
It is.
and the Jewish people.
Globally, because now it's not,
Mhm.
it's, when anything happens to Israel, all the Jews all over the world are at risk. I mean, see what happens in France, in England. I mean, not to start another topic altogether, but my whole family who was left in France. Uh, my sister has 3 kids, and between those three, they have 10 grandkids. They are all making their papers to make Aliyah very soon. They're disgusted. That the political scene in France, and we don't want to get into that because I don't have time anymore. But whatever happens in Israel affects the Jews of the world, and to an extent, John, which is what people need to prepare themselves for. If you support Israel, you're now a target as well. You know,
That's becoming true, and I mean, every now and then I have to the sort of in the comments on YouTube and stuff, to the extent that we allow them anymore. I
yeah,
need to go take out the trash, I call it.
yeah. Pick up the trash and take it out. You're right, absolutely. Well, John, listen, we've
Thanks, Olivier.
we've done an hour, and as always, I turn you on, I let you loose, and then you take over, and then you have so much information that I don't want to interrupt you. That was very, very helpful. Thank you for that. Uh, Friends, I'll have John again soon in another podcast. It's always a pleasure getting together. At the end of the day, friends, we sound like we're sounding the alarm that things are bad in the Middle East, and they are, that the whole world is going against the Jews, and it is. But more important than anything else is your personal relationship with Yeshua, with Jesus. if you're listening and you're watching and you're learning and you don't know who Jesus is, well, today is your day. We talk about all this, John and I, but we have given our life years ago, and we to God. We are now what you would call followers of the Messiah, or some people call us Christians, whatever you want to say. We follow the Messiah. We follow the Jewish Messiah. We follow his teaching. Why? Because he gave his life for us. He died for John. He died for me, and he rose again. And he died for you. So if you're watching and you're interested about what's going on in the Middle East and you want to know about, all the other topics, just know that we sound very dramatic. We sound very concerned for good reasons, but we are not concerned about our eternity, because we have given our life to Yeshua, Jesus, and we know that we're going to spend eternity in the presence of God. And there's only two choices: eternity with God or eternity away from God. And the option away from God is not a good one. So friends, simply believing that Yeshua is the Messiah and he died for your sins and he rose again brings you into the family of God, and you're in and you cannot be excluded. You're in for good. So make that decision today if you haven't made it. For those of you who've made that decision, thank you for watching. Thank you for being followers. Remember, you want to go to shalomandmessiah.com, go to the connect button and select all that you want to get, because we're changing our mode of operation over the next month, and we're going to need to send you things through the email channel. It's safer that way. You will not miss any of our videos, of all the kinds of videos that we post on Shalom and Messiah. Thank you for watching. John, thank you so much for being on the show. And I will have you, I gotta hang up on this. People always call me when I'm online. I don't know about you, but always that way. John, do you have any final word?
No, I'm sure that we will have something. We'll find something to talk about in the future.
In the next 10 minutes, probably.
That's right.
John, God bless you and
Thank
shalom.
you, Olivier. Always good to be with you.